What's going on, everybody? This is James Grandmaster Facts Voice, and you're here for another episode of the Facts Project. Today, very special guest, Jerry Chatelain from E4 Comics, basically the creator of the Elements. Thank you for being here, brother.
Thank you for having me, James. You have no idea how important this meeting between me and you is to me because when I first started out in the indie comics, you're one of the first people I followed. And I've been following you ever since, and it's been an inspiration. And I can't explain to you how much we appreciate what you do in support of the indie creators out there.
Hey,
So
man,
thank you. I'm honored to be on the show.
I totally appreciate that, man. So, I feel as though I do my due diligence by highlighting and, of course, creating some type of transparency amongst the indie comic community, especially a lot of our brothers out there that are basically putting their projects out for the first time and seeing their creations live and putting them in people's hands. I just so happen to have two of these books here myself. So I thank you, brother, for being here. So let's get into this. So when we're talking about this, now you created the Elements. I remember when it surfaced in 2016. If you could talk about basically where the ideas came from and when did you finally say, okay, we're doing this. We're going to put basically pen to pad, write the story down, or the story was already written maybe 5 years prior, and you basically
Mhm.
got the Elements on his feet.
So we're going back to, I'm 37 years old right now. And we're talking about when I was around 14, 15 years old. Me and my three closest friends, adopted brother, cousin, my best friend, we grew up together. We always had each other back. We're all brothers at the end of the day. That's exactly how we look at each other. I've always been a writer. I've entered write short story writing competitions since I was in junior high school, and it's something that I've always enjoyed doing. So one great crazy morning, I get introduced to anime. Okay, so it doesn't mean that it's the best anime, but it is my goat because it introduced me into anime. The very first anime I watched was Dragon Ball Z, and we're talking about 5:30 in the morning. You
Mm.
had to wake up and turn the TV on to see it. I think it was like on channel 11 or 5 or something like that to
Uh-huh.
see it on regular TV.
You were in the New York area if you're talking about Channel 11 and
Yes,
Channel 5. Okay.
yes, Brooklyn, New York.
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn,
Okay.
New York. So, and I just remember being blown away by what I was watching. We grew up watching all the regular, cartoons, Thundercats, Ninja Turtles,
Yeah.
etc. But this was just different, and I remember calling my boys like, yo, y'all need to start waking up 5:30 in the morning. Y'all need to check this new show out. Remind me, I didn't know it was called an anime back then. I
Right,
was
right,
like, y'all
right.
need to check this show out. Yeah,
It,
like y'all
it,
need
was it
to
was
check this out.
Japanimation.
This shit
Yeah,
is great.
it was Japanimation for us, like older.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. As I got older, I started learning these terms, and I'm like, oh, so this is not American? That makes a lot of sense. Like, it's so different, you
So
know? So since then, that's when we kind of like got together, and I was like, yo, being so inspired by anime and started getting into other anime, I was like, yo, we should create our own story, that has like an animation feel to it. And that's when we started throwing things out there. We were very into the elements growing up. We enjoyed the elements. So it was like, how about we pick an element and each person chose an element kind of like that fit their characteristics. So my character Pyro's based off of my personality. Then you got Hydro, who's based out of my voice Hassan. Shock, who's based from my cousin Corey, and then Sky, who's based from my adopted brother Matthew. And once we started putting the characters together, we started writing a story plot about what we wanted to see, what we were expecting, where the story should go, what do we want to see in the story. So, everything, every time you watch a show, especially when you're a creator or writer, you can't help but say to yourself, I would do this different. I wouldn't have gone down this route. I would have made this, I would have chose this route, I would have went, different. So though Dragon Ball Z is one of my, favorite animes of all time, there is a lot of things about it that I would love to change that upsets me greatly, and that's one of the like, ideas I don't like this in this story. So we're gonna move away from that, and I'm gonna fix this problem that I didn't like with that story, and then continue pushing forward and creating the elements.
So
So that
basically,
was like the beginning.
nice. Yo, so now the beginning of E4 revolves around you and your adopted brother and your two
Yep.
good friends. So in starting that, you always knew that basically the company was going to be E4.
Yeah, because we chose like E4 because it's always like whenever you're starting something, company or you want to accomplish anything, it's kind of like once you find out like the four key components into creating or starting something, once you follow those four key components, like you're on your way for success. So we always saw that the number four, plus there were four of us, just sounded great. It's like, so that's pretty much before comics represent whatever it is you want to start, whatever it is you want to do. You find the four key components into accomplishing that goal, you stick to that goal, and you will be successful.
Mm, good to hear, brother. So as far as the creation of the elements, you always knew in creating the comic book, the actual physical comic book that it was going to be read in, that it was going to have this type of feel into it. You've already been fans of anime for so long. So now
So here's the crazy thing. Here's the crazy thing
oh,
about
go
that,
ahead,
all
go
right?
ahead. Yeah.
It did not start off as a comic book at all. Like when we wrote this, this we wrote it in a way that it was going to be an anime from the get-go.
Mm,
Okay, that's exactly how we envisioned the elements as an anime. But we were 15, 16 years old when we first started writing this. There's no way we were going to get into animation. So as the years went down and we saw how expensive animation can be, we had to, yeah, exactly. Like we had to find another route to go to try and get the story out there. So then we came up with the idea for creating a comic, but then that started a whole new level of issues because now we needed to find an artist. Then we need to find an artist that, you know, to our liking and our budget. So that's what took so long for the elements to even get off the ground. And then we found out that one of our friends, outside friends, Dennis, he had the art ability.
mm.
So he was the first person to draw one of our characters and bring him to life. And you'll see him in every Kickstarter as the concept artist. So once he drew that first character, that was the spark. That was like, holy shit, this is going to happen. Like this is on its way from happening. And then from there, I joined a bunch of Facebook groups of artists and writers, and I was looking for an artist that can turn Dennis art into an anime style art. And then once that happened, that's when we eventually came out with issue 0 of the Elements.
Well, it's funny because you're talking about this idea came to mind when you guys were 15 and 16. You're 37 now. You've been holding on to this idea like this was going to get made, regardless
Yeah,
of how old you guys got or however long time it was going to get basically like put into. And the thing is, it's even evolved. It was going to start off as an anime or better yet, like a cartoon, and then it evolved into this comic book. So
hmm
regardless, you guys persevered through all these hurdles in order to just physically get this book in people's houses.
yeah, definitely. Like it was just the transition alone was crazy because when you're writing a story for an anime, like you're able to include all the little bit of details that you love watching in anime and you like to watch that evolve. It's very difficult when you write an anime style story and have to convert it into a comic book with still pictures because
Mhm.
now it just feels like, am I conveying what I'm trying to get across enough with these images? Which is why, if you notice, my books are always 34 pages, which is normally more pages than a regular comic.
For sure, because
And
it's usually like
that's
22
part
to
of the reason.
26.
Yeah, exactly. I always feel like I'm not telling enough story, or maybe I'm not giving enough action because I was never really used to creating a comic book. So I had to adapt the anime story into a comic book style. And that was one of the most difficult things for me to have to do.
Well, one of the things aesthetically, just if you read any of your books, and yes, they are, just like you said, they're longer than a traditional comic book. They read like a manga, which are basically an anime style. So the aesthetics of the book, when you're seeing it firsthand from like how you basically like putting it about, there is a lot of detail to it because mangas read like the animes. Animes, of course, if you watch a Dragon Ball Z episode, shit, you got to the fight. If you knew they were going to fight in episode 1, you ain't get to the fight till episode 17.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? so it's
Exactly.
comforting, like when you're reading these books and everything like that, you're like, okay, you know what I'm saying, you're getting to know the characters, cool, personalities, cool, you know about their upbringings, cool, something basically as far as a conflict that is going to connect all four of the boys and basically bring them together as the elements. That happens. Then the training sequences happen. They start to discover their powers, the curiosity about what's happening with each and every one of them. There might be a turmoil in the middle of that. All this is now dragging onto the story, and then there's like this huge plot point. We haven't even got into the signature conflict yet.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So I get where you're coming from. Absolutely. But did you all like when you look at this, when you're looking at the art style, like the art style, I could tell you selected it. You didn't want anything to be beat out of the bush because you wanted this to look like an anime as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
So,
well, your concept artist and your artist for the books, how did you describe this to them, or how you wanted it?
I mean, so with my concept artist, it pretty much came down to like each of us had an intel of how we wanted the specific character to look. So it came like when it came to Pyro, I was like, yeah, I want him a bit dark skinned. I want him to have hair that kind of represents fire. So like something pointing upwards. He's going to be more of like the powerhouse, the physical person of the group. And then it went vice versa. We kind of like all agreed that we wanted the four brothers to be, um, I guess you could say, range from all colors,
Mm,
from pretty much black all the way to kind of white. Even though, yes, all of us are like black and Hispanics and
mhm.
mix and everything, but we wanted to like be able to reach out to everybody, have a bit of, everybody in this book, and everything. So they put in their input on how they wanted their characters to look and everything. And once we told Dennis, he pretty much created it to the best of his abilities. So it's a lot easier when Dennis draws the art, the original art, and then you hand it to that new artist and he just recreates it into an anime form. He just basically goes about what Dennis drew before. So that transition was better. It was just now about finding the artwork that we wanted for the book. And within the issues that we have, I've already been through 3 artists.
Wow.
And yeah, and I'm happy with the one that I have now. She's been a blessing. She's the artist for Burden of Truth issue 2, and she's going to be the artist for Dysis Saga part 1, 2, and 3.
Wow.
So I'm very happy with that.
Great. Now, most people, when they're basically starting out their indie comics for the first time, they usually started out with a solo character. You starting this out with a team right off the jump. How do you find the time in your writing? Because you say you've always been a writer. Every single character all these characters have to have these, singular personalities. So, like, how
Yeah.
are you able to separate everybody's like personality in order to make a continuous story?
So all 4 of us are different people. And we decided that we wanted the characters to portray our personality. And what makes that unique is obviously, for example, Pyro. Pyro's everyone's gonna look at Pyro and be like, Pyro's the hothead. Pyro's the Raphael of the group. He's going to be like the hard person to deal with. Honestly, I'm not like that in real life.
Mhm.
So that's not how Pyro really is. I'm actually more of the reserved kind of person and stay back because I know once my fuse does burn out, that is insane. Okay,
Mhm.
like it's very hard to bring me back. And
Mhm.
that's the kind of character I wanted to portray for Pyro. Then you have Hydro, which is my best friend Hassan. He's always been the wisdom of the group. We always needed advice. We went to him. I didn't want him to come out as like the Donatello creating gadgets. Not he's not that type of intelligence.
Hmm.
He's just more of the wisdom. Like he analyzes situations, be like, yo, I don't think it's a good idea to do this, or this person fights this certain way. I think if we could tweak our combat, this way, we might have a better chance of defeating him. That kind of wisdom. You know. Then you have Shock, very easy. It's Corey, cocky dude. He's very yeah, he's that dude, conceited. If we get into some shit, it's Corey did it. Like it's just like that. And then you have Sky, my brother, who basically is like he's the funny guy of the group. But even though being the funny guy of the group, he's pretty tactical
Mm.
when it comes down to the nitty and gritty. He can really think tactical, and that's because he has military background and things like that. So we wanted to try and have that within the story as well.
Okay. Okay. Now, basically, when the boys are pretty much discovering their powers and that curiosity that I talked about earlier starts to build up, they're introduced to this unknown figure, and this unknown figure is Clenneth, which
Mhm.
basically is more of a protector in the beginning, but then he offers tutelage to him, and he's now is the perfect fit as to being their teacher and showing them basically how the stones and the power sets work for each and every one of them. Could you describe Clenneth, like basically who he's based off of? Because I've seen characters like him before, but
Mhm.
who do you see him as to the elementals?
So I want to say he's kind of like the Master Splinter
Mm.
of the elements. So within this Kickstarter that we're coming out with October 7th, we're dropping two books. It's the third issue of The Elements, the Dysis Saga Part 1, and it's going to be the first issue of Clenneth, the
Ah,
Clenneth story.
got you.
Okay, so it's going to be about Clenneth, if anybody can see it, all right? It's going to be before he looks like this. So he is going to have a human-like body even though he is from another planet. And it's going to get into more detail of his story before he became this character that we know and met up and meeting with the brothers. So when you read the Clennis story, it's going to be pretty different. It's going to be more militant,
Mm.
like spatial militant, like military, because he was part of what we call the Rashir
Mm-hmm.
Empire. And he was a soldier in the Rashir Empire, and one of his duties was to train elementals in how to use their abilities. So, you know, the elements, his story, the kind of book is going to open up a lot of um, answers for questions that people wondered about him and where he came from or why he's doing what he's doing with the boys.
Got you. So now, with Clenneth, with that basically now there being somewhat of an origin story towards his background, does that put into perspective now from basically from the other books? Does it, because the the Chronos and the Rashir, of course, have been in sort of like a civil war for
Hmm.
ages. Is that going to touch on that, like their conflict and exactly where that started from, which pretty much brought the the stones to Earth and pretty much started the journey where Clenneth now is introduced to the boys for the first time.
Yes, we're gonna get into all the details about that and about pretty much like the Chronos growing without the Rashir, realizing how powerful they were getting,
Mm,
and part of the things, so something special that you're going to be introduced to in the kind of story is so what the Rashir does, they go from planet to planet, basically taking people from that planet that can use something called plenergy. So plenergy is an energy source that each planet gives its inhabitants on that planet.
right.
Some people on each planet have the ability to really utilize that energy and creating a special ability, whether it may be mind reading or, for example, Earth, which is a secret that I'm giving you now.
Mhm.
Earth's energy is chi energy.
Mhm.
Okay. And so before they destroy a planet, they find those people that have the ability to use that planergy to their favor, force them onto the Kronos Empire, steal the energy from the planet, which obviously causes the planet to get destroyed. And
Mhm.
that's how they've been building their army, in
I
the
got it.
backseat. So in the Clan store, you're gonna start seeing a lot of that come into light while being introduced to brand new characters that will eventually make their way into the Element story.
Dope, dope work. Now, as far as like the three books that you put out so far, of course, now being fully indebted into the indie comic book community, you've now have had the opportunity to take on a lot of collaborations, introduce yourself to other companies that are pretty much out there. You've even had opportunities where, of course, you've had Chris Michael from Crit basically jumping on as the letterer for the Burden of Truth. How has, since you've entered in 2016, how has the indie comic community received you in the books that you put out so far?
So I've been blessed, honestly, from when I first started in the indie community because I had a chance to meet great people like Concrete, Lonzo, Sovereign Comics, and a whole bunch of great creators that had no issue in sharing knowledge with me, and it's through Lonzo that I met Chris and Jason
Mm.
because they were friends. And eventually, Jason, Chris, and another member, Jesse, created a group called the SSB because if we wanted to get into distribution, it's very hard to do that with one book, two book, three books. But now, if you come together as one, you have a plethora of books. You look better to
Oh yeah.
present, to a distribution. So they created a group called the Savage Sandbox, the SSB. So it involves Jason from The Convictor, Chris from Crit, me from E4 Comics, Jerry Cooley from Cooley Studios. Um, we have Drew from Caspian, from Snowy Works. And we also have Dennis from Slate Comics. We have the Slate Boys from Australia,
Wow.
that have the book Omen and Cult and now Celestial Night. So we all came together to create this book, to, create this group to help distribute our creations a lot better when it comes to distribution companies like Diamond, etc. So that's pretty much how I met Chris and find out does the lettering because my artist, she's from the Philippines.
Okay.
So her English or anything like that, that's obviously not the best. So since Chris already does lettering, I figure I'd have her focus on the artwork so I can just send it to Chris and he can just fill in the lettering. That way he can even double check any misspellings that I might have done, during the writing or anything like that. So that's pretty much how he became. He's honestly the letterer of most of our books in the SFB, to
Wow.
be honest. Like, yeah, because he does such a great job with it, you know, we kind of just been like, all right, Chris, how about you handle it? We pay you, you handle it, you know, keep it within the group.
Yo,
So that's
I
pretty much how
I
people
I, I constantly get amazed by how basically pretty much how the indie comic community comes together. And in that type of story where who knows, it might have started from a group chat, it might have started from just like the
Mhm.
linking in on social media or anything like that. But to basically have five companies, five, six companies that are now in collaboration, you probably are all over different parts of the United States and Australia to where
Mhm.
you have the ability to market and promote your books to one another and distribute it in a certain way that not a lot of people are thinking about.
Dude, like it's crazy to even think about it because we all met on Instagram. And because of COVID, like,
Oh, y'all got
so
even
yes,
closer.
COVID was obviously, yeah, like, so, COVID was devastating for a lot of people, but believe it or not, I think COVID was actually uh a plus for indie creators because a lot of people had ideas, and COVID, since you couldn't go out, forced you to sit down, buckle down, and really go into your project.
Mm,
So we've been doing that, and we've all gotten close on Instagram until one, finally when things started to open up, we finally met each other for the first time in South Carolina doing Conjugate Con, you
mm.
know, and an experience like that is kind of scary because it's like I met these people on the internet. You know what they say about
It's
meeting
true.
people on the internet, like you shouldn't do it. So it's kind of like I'm meeting these people in person for the first time. How is this gonna happen? Like,
Right.
how is it gonna work? You know, and I'm happy to say that it was one of the greatest experiences ever. We all clicked automatically. We got along very well, and one of the funniest thing about meeting someone in person is you never know what you're going to see. So I could be looking at you, James, and I'd be like, yo, James is about like 5'5",
Mhm.
150 pounds. And then I meet you in person, you're 6'3". I'm like, what the hell? Like, so you don't know what you're seeing. So that was one of the funniest things because when the first person I met was Chris's wife,
Mhm.
and she's also a small, petite woman. So literally, I came, and I just bear hugged her. So she
Uh-huh.
just turns around to this big chest, like, what the hell's happening right now? And then she looks, she's like, oh my God, it's Jerry. And then everyone's looking at me, and everyone's like, whoa, you're a lot bigger than we thought. Like, you're massive, And I'm like, and then I'm looking at Chris, and I was like, "Yeah, you're massive, but you're short. Like, you're a lot shorter than I expected you to be." So it was a great experience and everything. And since we've been doing that, we've all had they've been helping me out with the comic. We help each other out wherever it is that we can. You know, um, from writing the comics and everything, introducing issue 0 to now issue 3.
Yeah.
It's all been great and adding more people to the team because now I have a new member of the team. She's an editor,
Hmm.
and her name is Farrell, and she has been an amazing asset to the team. Like I thought my writing was good before. My writing is going to be much better with her on the team because we all deal with our own personal lives, and sometimes
Yeah.
our projects tend to fall to the wayside. She makes sure it stays on point,
Hey,
and yeah, she's brutal, and I love it. Like,
hey,
that's
hey,
exactly what we need.
one of the hardest rules in comics is that you always need an editor, man. Sometimes
Yes, it is.
your own ideas can get in the way. You need that editor to just chop you back a little bit. It doesn't matter that they're brutal, man. It's a good
Mhm.
thing.
Yep, you don't realize how much you need it until you get it, and it's like I'm very happy that I was able to find her, because now I don't have to really worry about my work suffering because of like my own personal life. Now it helps me balance both things, and now I can continue improving for all the fans, giving people more and better stories to read. So definitely one of the greatest moves that I've done.
Definitely. Shout out to her. What's her name again?
Farrell?
Farrell. Shout out to Farrell.
Yep.
Definitely. So let's get into the juice of this thing. So you are in the pre-launch of the Dysis Saga. Now we've been introduced to, of course, the Twin Titans and basically the Chronos just sending down multiple villains to battle the elementals on their home turf, and they keep getting washed. So Dysis is now like, you know what? He did his Thanos moment. He was like, I'm gonna do this shit myself. What makes Dysis a formidable foe as opposed to the Twin Titans and the other members that Kronos has pretty much brought down?
All right. So the crazy thing about that is the timeline
Mm,
of issue 0 and the Dysis Saga. So issue 0 is the first book we came out with. Issue 0 is not the first issue. Okay. It's not the first story. So when we came out with issue 0, we wanted to present it with a lot of action, excitement to get people like really into it and to wonder, wait, how do we get here? What's happening here?
mm,
And then from issue 0, we come out with issue 1 to where the boys are basically in the orphanage, kind of like one of those Naruto fillers
Right.
situations, like now we're back in the orphanage and they're young, and it's like, wait, what's happening right now? So now what we plan on doing is from issue one, we're going to build back to issue zero to the
Mm,
Twin Titans. So it's not that Dysis is stronger or better than the Twin Titans, because if you want to put it in a timeline, compare it to something, he's the Raditz of the group.
okay.
And then the Twin Titans are the Frieza of the story.
Mm,
So that's the difference between that. It's not that he's stronger than them. It's just that this is the first powerful foe that the boys are gonna have to face. So issue two, the burden of truth, went into details about, you know, where Kenneth is from. He teaches the boys about the stones, what the stones are about, and how to use them. So he's basically issue two is about him training the boys and how to use their abilities. He takes the boys away from the orphanage and he's like, you guys need to make a decision. You guys are either going to become the elemental warriors that of old that we need to protect the galaxy, or you guys can walk away from this. So
mm,
the boys had to make an important decision in the burden of truth, and they chose, you know what? We were going to leave the orphanage anyway. This is like a calling. I'd rather do this than, and protect the people that we love. So they take Kenneth on his offer and they start the training with him. But now the twist that you get in Burden of Truth, for those that didn't read it, is Kenneth becomes mind boggled with the boys because from what he remembers of their older elemental, they had to wear the stones, whether it was a chain, a bracelet, whatever.
mm-hmm.
Once he was training the boys, he was like trying to teach them how to tap into their powers, and they were having an issue with it. And he's like, wait a minute, where are the stones? And the boys are like, what stones? And then, Hydra's like, wait, are you talking about the stones that we had in our hallucination that you saw in issue one? Where
Yeah.
they get like over Hydra gets absorbed in the tsunami, Shock gets electrocuted, Pyro falls into like a pit of lava,
Mm-hmm.
and Sky gets caught in the tornado. And they reached out for these stones, and then that illusion disappeared.
Right.
So um they were like, yeah, we've encountered them during our hallucination, but then when we got out of the hallucination, the stones weren't there. We don't know what happened to them.
Right.
Clarence ends up finding out that the boys' bodies absorb the stones. So
Mm-hmm.
the stones are in them. So now even he's left speechless, like, this has never happened before.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be honest with you, I don't know what you guys are capable of anymore because this is a whole different concept. This has never been done.
Right.
So what you guys might be capable of doing, I don't even know. So if you have the secret issue zero, which is no longer in print, that's why it ends the way that it ends,
Mm,
with them, in their new forms, because that's what it leads to. So that's the whole concept of issue zero and where it falls from Dysis and the Twin Titans. So we will be getting back to the Twin Titans. It will look obviously a lot different because we have a lot more details now that we're willing to throw into it and changes. So it's going to be much better once we get up to that point.
So now we're looking at Dysis Saga Part One. How deep is this? This now being almost like a new phase into the story, and I know it goes back, but how many parts or issues does this go into the story?
Three issues. Dysis Saga is going to be Dysis Part 1, 2, and 3. That is going to be the end of that. And then the story will obviously continue further after that.
So if I wanted to look at it as the reader, just in like reading order, would I have to do the Dysis Saga 1, 2, and 3, and then jump into 0, 1, 2 with basically like Burden of Truth, The Awakening, and issue 0 all in one pack? So it's kind of like one volume, and then you have this volume too.
Yeah, you can start off, if you start off from The Awakening issue 1, then to Burden of Truth, then to Dysis 1, 2, and 3. I think the story would make a lot more sense.
Mm.
Because issue 0 is just kind of the oddball out there because it's where the story's supposed to go all the way around and come back to. So you're going to read issue 0 and be like, okay, I read issue 0, but then we're back to this. What did I miss? So if you wanted to, you could definitely be like, issue 1, Awakening, Burden 2, then the Dysis Sagas, and then so on and so forth. So I'm thinking about what I would end up doing is when we do make that full circle is to probably re-releasing issue 0
I would think so.
with the new Twin Titan thing. Yeah, with the new version of the Twin Titans that we're gonna create when we get to that point.
So at the end of
So
the day, at the end of the day, does this like fit in the one continuous volume? Dysis Saga
um,
0, 1, and 2?
yeah, pretty much it all kind of falls into that. Dysis Saga, I guess, is going to be the end of that volume, and then we're going to continue further on. So that's why we're starting with the Cleanest Saga because with the new characters we plan on introducing, it's good to see them in a natural habitat in the Cleanest story. So when they do show in the elements, you'll be like, yo, that's the dude or that's the chick from the Cleanest story. Yeah, I remember, yo, she's badass, things like that. So
Right, right, right.
that's what we're trying to have. So.
Dope, 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 dope. Well, hey, if you could let us know when Dyson Saga drops, and if anybody wanted to basically get into the elements for the very first time, how could they get their hands on these books?
We're dropping our third Kickstarter October 7th, which will have everything. It's going to have issue 1, 2, 3, plus the first issue of the Clemens story. We're going to have, cool new tiers. We're gonna have 2 new rewards. Like we're gonna have the chibi shirts because these was a big hit with our last Kickstarter. We have chibi shirts of Pyro, Hydro, Sky, and Shock. And Clenneth, we're going to create 2 more of one with Dysis, one with the new version of Clenneth. We also created challenge coins, which
Mm,
is something that people really into of each character. So we're going to be introducing 2 new challenge coins for Dysis and the new Clement. On top of that, we're going to have so each issue is going to have 3 separate covers. So the Dysis Saga Part 1 is going to have 3 covers. The Clement story is going to have 3 covers. And we're going to be giving away like these special posters that
mm,
kind of
okay.
comes with all 3 designs of the covers as well.
Dope.
So yeah, we're looking to really expand and create things, especially now. So the 27th, 28th, and 29th of October, I will be at Baltimore Comic Con.
Yes, sir.
So this will be the biggest con that I've been to so far since I started this. So I'm nervous, I'm excited, you know, so I'm going through all the emotions.
Yeah.
So I can't wait. The Kickstarter will be running along the time that I'm in, at Baltimore Comic Con. So I'm hoping to be able to capitalize on that as well. So, anybody backs the Kickstarters, they can get all the issues from the Kickstarter.
Perfect. Now, if they wanted to get any of the past issues, do they go straight to the website?
They can go to the website at www.e4comics.com. You also have the shirts and everything available on there as well. The only thing that's not there is issue 0, like I said.
Which
That's
I
been kind
have.
of, yes, you have, which is off print. So,
Word up. Word up. So, Jerry, man, look, man, it's been wonderful talking to you, and I appreciate you doing this with me. And I totally can't wait to see what you got going on in the future, man, especially with this coming out. Would you say October 6th, 7th?
7th, October 7th.
October 7th. Kickstarter arrives for Dysis Saga Part 1. Jerry Chatelain, appreciate you being here. This has been off
Thank,
the chain. I appreciate it.
thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to doing this for a while, man. So, once again, I'm honored to be on your show. I'm hoping to be able to do this again.
Absolutely, man. So from James Grandmaster Facts Boys, Jerry Chatelain from E4 Comics, and we are out.